Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I have a ton of huge news over the last 24 hours I'd like to brief you all on today. So, we're going to start off talking about the Kursk region once again inside of Russia, as things appear to be very tense over there. Yesterday, I reported to you guys that Russia had launched a major counteroffensive in the southern portion of the territory that Ukraine is currently controlling right now, and it created a security situation. So we have a new story here on your screen. Russian forces try to infiltrate Sudza, Kursk region, Ukraine stops push. So Sudza is a major stronghold point, major town inside of the Kursk region where Ukrainian territory is currently being held right now. And yeah, apparently they tried to infiltrate this major stronghold. You can see also on your screen here about 100 Russian soldiers used an underground gas pipeline to reach the positions of Ukraine's defense forces near the area of Sudza on the morning of March 8th. Ukraine repelled the attack. So this is a new video coming out from that area. Some sort of explosion occurred over here, probably a strike. Not really sure what was being attacked over here, but this was a new video just breaking today on X. So we know things are very tense over here, and Ukraine did repel this attack near Sudza, and there's a town not too far away to the east of Sudza where the Russians tried to use this gas pipeline and travel through it, but apparently Ukraine did have the intelligence knowing this attack was coming, and we're hearing that up to 80% of these Russian forces were destroyed. So we're going to talk more about that today, and we also have reports in the Kursk region also that several points of the border between Ukraine and Russia, Russian soldiers along with North Korean soldiers are trying to cross over the border into Ukraine. So we've had multiple incursions on the Ukrainian border from the Russian side as well. And major hits inside of Ukraine last night. Ukraine was getting attacked by ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and also we had a town called Dobropilia, if I'm pronouncing that right. This town was attacked in the Donetsk region last night heavily with cluster munitions and ballistic missiles. It's not too far away from Pokrovsk, which we've been talking about that city quite a bit. Ukraine's trying to hold on to that major transport and rail hub city in the Donetsk region. So about 25 kilometers from there, there was major strikes over there. Many civilians being killed. I think about a dozen of them so far have been killed. So we've got lots of crazy video footage coming out today. Also, Ukraine launching their own attack into Crimea last night and Krasnodar region. We have reports up in the Bryansk region right next door to the Kursk region of Russia that Ukraine attacked a plant, some sort of manufacturing plant that produces dry rations for the Russian army. So that plant took direct hits and potentially caught on fire as well. And also in the Leningrad region, we have reports of a refinery being attacked over there. So just so much information coming out today. Let's go ahead and start diving into the news here. We're going to hop on over to X, and I've got lots of information for you today. This from next to loud assault on Sudza. Russians use gas pipeline to bypass Ukrainian defenses. Approximately 100 Russian soldiers used the 1.4 meter diameter pipes of the Urengoy Pomari Uzgorod, if I'm pronouncing that right, gas pipeline to secretly infiltrate the area near the city of Sudza. This operation was not unexpected as Ukrainian armed forces were aware of the potential attack in advance. Ukrainian paratroopers eliminated up to 80% of the Russian group attempting to infiltrate through the pipeline. Ukraine was able to prepare for the assault despite logistical challenges and the inability to destroy the pipeline itself. Russian forces supported by private military companies, PMC, and special forces continue their advance while the Ukrainian forces are determined not to retreat despite the threat of encirclement. Russian troops have occupied several settlements in the Kursk region, including Viktorovka and Nikolaevka. The situation is worsening on the flanks, where Russian forces have taken control of Ukrainian supply routes, making defense more difficult. The Kursk region has become a hotspot where the Ukrainian forces are losing their tactical advantage due to heavy attacks, including the use of drones and artillery. The positions of the Ukrainian armed forces are shrinking, and the front in the area is becoming narrower. North Korean forces are actively participating in Russia's offensive, adding pressure to Ukrainian positions in the region. Ukrainian forces continue to resist and take countermeasures despite deteriorating conditions. It is clear that the situation in the Kursk region requires immediate decisions and tactical changes in the command of the Ukrainian armed forces. The Russian assault on Sudzha has been more organized, using unexpected routes of the gas pipeline. Ukrainian forces managed to inflict significant losses on the enemy, but the situation remains critical as the front narrows and supplies are limited. Russia's successes in the Kursk region could lead to the threat of encircling large troops of Ukrainian forces if the situation does not change. So here's just a little photo to show you guys. We had this on the thumbnail for you just to kind of show illustration of the type of pipeline or similar pipeline that the Russians tried to crawl through and infiltrate into Sudzha. Okay, so what we understand is Sudzha is okay for the most part. They were able to repel this attack, but based on all this information, it's not looking good for Ukraine over here. And lots of reports were coming out yesterday that threats of encirclement, thousands of soldiers, sometimes up to 10,000 soldiers, could be encircled inside of Kursk. So we could be hearing very soon that maybe Ukraine might have to pull out of the Kursk region. We don't really know yet, but things are deteriorating very quickly. And this just comes after a couple days ago. We heard from the Trump administration, they were cutting off intelligence to Ukraine. And I do have an update on that today. Okay, so things are not looking good over here. Also, from Max 24, AFU are not leaving the Kursk region. There is no encirclement of the troops either, according to RBC Ukraine source. Now, the width of the Ukrainian bridgehead in the Kursk region has decreased to 11 kilometers, but the situation is not critical. Okay, so from what we understand here, they are losing some ground over here, but they're still holding on strong. And I believe this is that pipeline that ran from this town over here. I'm not sure it's in Russian, but this is where they tried to use that pipeline and cross over from the eastern side over here, where Ukraine is actually controlling territory. The Russians broke through and were trying to infiltrate through that pipeline here to Sudzha, which is that major stronghold point over here in the Kursk region. Okay, so this is where this white area right here is actually where the Russians launched their offensive just yesterday. Okay, so the Russians are moving very quick, trying to push Ukraine out and take advantage of the situation right now where Ukraine doesn't have much intelligence. So I do have some information today, though, that apparently Ukraine is getting defensive intelligence from the U.S., just not offensive intelligence. So I thought that was interesting. We'll show you that here in just a little bit. Now from Jurgen Audit, that brings us to the question, did Trump inform the Russians about the stop beforehand? An offensive cannot be launched in a few hours. Did the Russians know about Trump's plan? So he's talking about the cutoff of supplies of U.S. weapons to Ukraine, and also the intelligence that we just talked about. So this is a report that he's referring to from yesterday from Jurgen Nada. Also, Trump's betrayal has catastrophic consequences in Ukraine. 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers face encirclement in the Kursk region, according to the Telegraph. Okay, so that was reported yesterday. According to the publication, the main offensive against the Ukrainian armed forces began right after the United States stopped sharing intelligence with Ukraine. So this was some pictures coming out, or like a little map showing the offensive that happened yesterday that we talked about. So see, March 2nd, just about 6 days ago, this is the amount of territory Ukraine was controlling, and they had control of this area where Russia had launched their offensive. And then down here, just 4 days later, after a lot of the support for Ukraine got cut off, this is when Russia launched their counteroffensive here in the south, just north of Guevo. And it says here Russia will target the supply route. So once they get in closer to the border, there's a road right here where it says Yunakivka that runs from the Sumy region up into Sudzha, and they use this to supply the Ukrainian troops over here. And Russia could be targeting this major highway here with just simply with FPV drones. Okay, so it's not looking good, and this is very dangerous for Ukraine. They could potentially have to pull out here, but so far it looks like they are holding right now. It's just very tense situation over here. Now, from War Monitor, North Korean troops have crossed the border with Ukraine in an area of fighting for the first time. Okay, so we're hearing that North Korean troops, along with Russian soldiers as well, are starting to cross the border. This is up here in the Kursk region. I do have a map here to show you guys too. From Jurgen Nada, Ukraine is now fighting against 5 nuclear powers: US, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, and is holding. Important so far, no major border breach has been registered in the Sumy region between Novenki and Zorovka. And it says Central Border Police, or according to Central Border Police, the occupiers are still trying to break through the border in isolated groups, but without success. Okay, so far, Ukraine is able to repel a lot of these attacks. So the blue is where Ukraine is currently controlling, and these several points right here, you can see these gray areas These are where the Russian forces, along with North Korean troops, are trying to break through the border into the Sumy region of Ukraine. Okay, so far Ukraine has been able to repel these attacks, but nonetheless, like I told you guys, it's very tense over here right now. So anything could change very quickly. So this was the report yesterday that came out from Max 24. Ukraine may withdraw troops from the Kursk region in the next 2 weeks, according to New York Post. So this just kind of shows how encircled right now Ukraine is over here. They're being attacked from all directions. I just cannot believe the Ukrainian soldiers are just absolutely fighting like warriors over here, controlling a pretty small amount of territory, but nonetheless just inflicting major losses on the Russians. You know, if the Russians are not pushing Ukraine out yet, they've got to be taking on heavy losses over here. And although they did launch this offensive down here and take control of probably maybe 1/5 of the territory that Ukraine was currently controlling, nonetheless, they're still holding on strong. Okay, so as far as we know, they're not encircled yet. They're still fighting on, and we'll see how things change here over the next few days. But it looks like the situation is rapidly changing every day. So now we're going to move on to talk about these strikes inside of Ukraine last night. This is from Vicegrad 24. Breaking: 12 Ukrainian civilians were killed last night when Russia launched 2 ballistic missiles with cluster munitions against a residential area in Dobropilya, 25 kilometers from Pokrovsk. After rescue services arrived on the scene, the Russians launched another double tap attack. So it's crazy. You know, we've seen this before. Russia does do a lot of double tapping. They'll launch an attack on one area, and then all of a sudden emergency crews show up. Soon after, they'll attack the same site again. Okay, so they were using cluster munitions, which drop little bomblets everywhere and are usually used to take out infantry. And they were dropping them on residential areas, apparently, according to Ukraine. So we've got a video coming out here. You're going to see massive amounts of explosions from these cluster munitions going off. Take a look at this.
Это что, Луганский уничтожают?
Да, где-то там.
Мама, Риковой маме там пиздец, наверное. Там момент Луганский.
Кассеткой.
All right, so this war is definitely heating up very fast, guys. We're seeing a lot of ballistic missiles going into Ukraine right now. Many of these eastern cities close to the front line just being hammered lately. Kostiantynivka got hit again today, and what a frightening video seeing all these cluster munitions going off. Look at just right here next to all these homes, guys. This is crazy. So we're going to move on to another update now from Vicegrad 24. Again, another video of last night's Russian double tap strike with cluster munitions against a residential area of Dobropilya, which killed 14 Ukrainian civilians and wounded 50. So look at the amount of people that were hurt by this. Also, 50 civilians wounded, 14 killed so far. The numbers just keep rising, it looks like. Double tap strike is when a second attack is launched around 20 minutes after the first to target rescue workers. So I believe that's what we're going to see here, okay? Things are already on fire. Then we see another cluster munition coming in very close to where these people are standing. Take a look at this. All right, super frightening, guys. I mean, look at this. These emergency crews are showing up after the first set of cluster munitions came in. Soon after, double tapping that same area and hammering these residential areas of Ukraine. So pretty insane, guys. Again, this is in the Donetsk region, close to Pokrovsk. Here's some pictures coming out also from Bliskovka. The death toll in Ukrainian city of Dobropilya, Donetsk region, has increased to 11. According to Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, more than 30 people were injured, including 5 children. The Russians fired 2 ballistic missiles after the services arrived at the scene. Another strike was launched deliberately at the rescuers. I mean, look at this, guys. The amount of damage here, so many homes catching on fire. Emergency crews showing up. They're getting hammered by these cluster munitions as well. So this is absolutely crazy to have to report this today. This is probably one of the worst attacks or scariest attacks that I've ever reported inside of Ukraine. You know, we got emergency crews showing up soon after. They're getting shelled as well. So moving on to another update from Max 24. Dobropilya at night, the Russians launched a combined strike on the city: Iskander-M missile, Tornado S MLRS, and Garan-2 UAVs. Okay, so not only missiles being launched, but also drones on this city as well. Look at the amount of damage here, and look at all the shrapnel that was hitting this building here also, as people were showing up. Rescue crews trying to rescue people that maybe are trapped inside these buildings. I mean, look at this thing completely caught on fire, burned out, and destroyed. We've got shelling here in the middle of this open, probably a driveway or something right here. We've got a lot of like storage buildings that were destroyed here also, and lots of damage to this building in the background. So pretty crazy, guys, what's coming out from that area today. Also from Liskovka, Russians dropped 5 air bombs on Kostiantynivka, according to Donetsk RMA. Local residents aged 29 to 48 were injured. 7 high-rise buildings, 4 private houses, 4 administrative buildings, a pharmacy, a shop, 6 power lines, and 2 gas pipelines were also damaged. So look at the amount of civilian infrastructure being hit over here also in Kostiantynivka. I've probably talked about this town maybe 8 or 10 times already just over the last couple weeks, as almost every single day Kostiantynivka is getting heavily hit. This is also in the Donetsk region, not too far away from the front line. So many towns just 25 to 50 kilometers away from the front are being heavily shelled right now from the Russians. So moving on to Ukrainian review now. Overnight, the enemy again struck the DTEK energy facility in the Odessa region. This is the 7th strike on the region's energy system in 3 weeks. Energy workers are working around the clock to eliminate the consequences of the shelling. So 7th strike, guys, 7th strike on the region's energy system in 3 weeks in Odessa. This is in southwestern Ukraine, and we literally just heard a week ago from the foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov. He came out in a statement saying that Russia is not deliberately attacking Ukraine's energy system. And then literally 24 hours later after that, I remember we heard Odessa getting smashed and an electrical substation was on fire due to a drone attack. So Russia's launching almost daily attacks on Odessa right now with drones and targeting energy facilities over here. Okay, so 7th strike, guys. They can't even keep up. Several times a week, their energy facilities over here in Odessa are being hit. All right, now from Jane Kiev, Russian drones targeting any civilians they can tonight in Odessa, in cars, apartment buildings, just genocide. So this is a very frightening video also. This man's driving, and just in between himself and this car, you can kind of see here, it's a little blurry, but you're gonna hear an incoming drone just crash right into the ground when he's driving in between himself and this car, and it completely destroys his windshield. But apparently he looks like he's okay. So take a look at this.
Пиздец, блядь.
All right, so another frightening video. You could clearly see here this man driving along. Here comes this drone crashing right into him, right into the street in front of him, excuse me, and shattering his windshield. So thankfully, looks like he was okay there, but it definitely frightened him. And this is what it looks like in Odessa almost every night. Okay, lots of drones just incoming. So now we're going to talk about what Ukraine was doing to Russia last night. Take a look at this map from Azov South. Our good jet UAVs working on the orcs tonight. So by orcs, they mean the Russians. So take a look at this, guys. Just lots of drones going into Russia last night. Multiple regions being targeted here. Many towards the Krasnodar region. I'm not sure what was being targeted down here. We don't really have any reports of anything significantly being hit, but looks like a good bulk of the UAVs that were fired from Ukraine were attacking Krasnodar last night. We can see some heading over here to Volgograd, maybe that refinery over here. Then also up here, heading north, up in all these regions, Voronezh, Tambov, Ryazan, Oriol, Bryansk. So Bryansk is where we had that manufacturing plant for dry rations for the Russian army that was hit. And then also way up in the Leningrad region, more north up here, we have that refinery being attacked as well. So we're going to go over all those details here. So from Bliskovka, overnight, drones attacked the Kiev refinery in the Leningrad region of Russia and a company in Bryansk that produces dry rations for the army, local media reports. Russian authorities confirmed that a tank at the refinery was damaged, and Bryansk 6 Ukrainian Peklo drones caused a large-scale fire, and local residents were evacuated. The Russian Ministry of Defense announced the downing of 31 drones. There are also reports of an attack on the Rostov region without details on the consequence. Okay, so that's down there near the Krasnodar region. So yeah, attacks happening down there too. Not really sure what was being hit. But for sure, we know the Kiev refinery was attacked last night. At least one oil storage tank most likely being damaged. and also Peklo drones. These are rocket drones that Ukraine has been producing, recently unveiled in the last like maybe 3 to 5 months. They use these to attack also. We had some sort of manufacturing plant in the Bryansk region, excuse me, that was attacked producing dry rations. So this video footage coming out here is about 50 seconds long, and it's going to show destruction to that plant in the Bryansk region that produces the dry rations for the Russian army. Unfortunately, I don't have any videos coming out from the refinery today in the Leningrad region. That'd be up near like St. Petersburg. But we do have this video here. Take a look at this.
Что-то упало сверху. Не плачь, не плачь. С вами все хорошо? Вы не ранены?
Все живы, ничего никому.
Мышки где-то оттуда, что ли? Дрон выключился, да? Там дрон. А? Дрон выключился.
All right, so allegedly this is video footage coming out from that plant in the Bryansk region that was attacked with Ukrainian drones. We can see lots of debris everywhere, bricks all over the place. There was even a woman here that was crying. These could be people maybe that were working at the plant inside, or maybe they lived close to this plant when it was attacked. And clearly she was scared for her life there as these drones attacked very close to her. Also for Max 24, Bryansk plant, Konservusush Prod, if I'm saying that right. I'm probably butchering that. Sorry, guys. At least 6 strikes. So this is video footage also showing a fire allegedly that broke out on this plant that produces the dry rations over here in the Bryansk region. Okay, so major hits over here, and Ukraine trying to destroy rations for the Russian army. All right, so moving on to another update now for Military News UA. Russian aviation blogger Fighter Bomber writes that right now the Ukrainian armed forces are attacking Russian gas production facilities using naval drones in the Black Sea. He says that the attack used a new version of naval drones which carry several smaller drones and have a pair of man-pads and 2 machine guns. Okay, so he put a little photo here, Fighter Bomber did, and Fighter Bomber is like a Russian Telegram channel, and they report a lot of attacks that happen, especially down in Crimea. So allegedly this is like a new photo of the type of Magura V5 naval drones that Ukraine is using. So they have like this little machine gun on the front of them. Apparently they have man pads that are installed where they can use it to take down helicopters. And also they're apparently attaching FPV drones to the tops of these as well, and they can launch them off the tops. And we've seen that many times where whenever these Magura V5 drones get close to Crimea, they'll launch these FPV drones and use them to attack land-based targets inside of Crimea, many times destroying even air defense systems in the southern portions of Ukraine, like in the Zaporizhia or Kherson regions where Russia's controlling. So that was a report coming out from Fighter Bomber last night, as he was claiming that Ukraine was using these to attack Crimea. So also naval drones were attacking Crimea last night as well. Now we're going to move on to some miscellaneous things before we get you guys out of here from the Ukrainian Review. Putin is not interested in peace, Kaja Kallis says today. Russian missiles continue to attack Ukraine, causing new casualties and destruction. Putin is once again demonstrating his unwillingness to stop the war. She called for increased military support for Ukraine, as without this, even more Ukrainian civilians will pay the highest price. Okay, so just yesterday, Putin was coming out reportedly from Bloomberg. They were stating that Putin was saying he was willing to negotiate and they were ready for peace and all that. But, you know, Kaja Kallis, the vice president of the European Commission, has a point here that if Russia's launching these massive ballistic missile attacks and cluster munitions and killing civilians inside of Ukraine, how does that demonstrate peace? That doesn't really demonstrate that. So she's kind of just coming out and calling out Russia on that, saying that Russia's not ready for peace right now. So, you know, what's going to happen over here? Are we not going to see any kind of ceasefire soon, or are we going to see that? Because there's people coming out saying they want a ceasefire, but then 24 hours later or less, just hours later sometimes, launching major strikes inside of Ukraine or whatever, right? So definitely an interesting situation over here. We're going to have to see if we get peace at some point, but it doesn't look like it's going to be likely anytime soon. Now for Max 24, the U.S. continues to provide Ukraine with intelligence necessary for conducting defensive operations. So yeah, apparently lots of mainstream news is picking this story, and saying that the U.S. is still providing Ukraine with some form of intelligence, at least for conducting defensive operations, maybe not offensive, to launch missiles inside of Russia, which we have not really seen that over the last few days. We haven't seen Ukraine launching any U.S. made or British UK British Storm Shadow missiles being used inside of Russia. So we have been hearing that Neptunes could have been fired, which are Ukrainian made, into Crimea yesterday, but for the most part, not really hearing about missile use from the Ukrainians. Also from Max 24, 4 European companies are in talks with Ukraine to provide satellite communications instead of Starlink, according to Financial Times. Okay, so we talked a lot about this. There is a company out of, I believe, France or Germany. I forget which country it is. It was called Eutelsat or something like that. Eutelsat. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but we talked about that company several times over the last couple of days. They're working on getting Ukraine like 40,000 of these terminals that they can use to replace a lot of the Starlink that Elon Musk controls basically for Ukraine. And we've been hearing that Elon Musk might cut Starlink for Ukraine. So they're trying to find a way to get around that. So that was a new report today. Now from Max 24 again, next week I will visit Saudi Arabia, and after meeting with the Crown Prince, Ukrainian diplomats and military will hold talks with the American team, according to Zelensky. Today in Kiev, a meeting of the diplomatic teams of Ukraine and Britain took place very productively. We discussed our joint steps that can bring peace closer and accelerate diplomatic work. Main topic in Saudi Arabia is the agreement on minerals and relations with the U.S. Okay, so yesterday I let you guys know that some officials from the Ukrainian government were stating that Zelensky was not going to attend the meeting in Riyadh next week on Tuesday. So U.S. delegation and also Ukrainian delegation is supposed to meet. And again, we heard yesterday Zelensky was not going to attend. All of a sudden today, we're hearing he is going to attend. So don't know what's going to happen yet. We'll wait for Tuesday and see if he actually shows up. But according to this information, looks like he will be showing up to that meeting. And they're going to be talking about the minerals deal and also increasing relations with the U.S. as recently their relations have not been good, as we've been talking a lot about. So we'll see what happens next week, and we'll give you another update on that. Now from Bliskovka, the U.S. has informed its allies that it will stop participating in the planning of future military exercises in Europe, including in Sweden, according to Expressen. According to the publication, this decision was not made for the exercises, which have already been approved for 2025. Okay, so it looks like in the future, the U.S. is going to be staying out of a lot of military exercises in Europe, and we're already seeing that. We're seeing Trump wanting to pull, many forces away from Europe, and some of this also I think is to try to save money for the military, because we know a lot of defense budget cuts are coming for the U.S. military over the next 5 years, so that could possibly be why also. But I was hearing that a lot of this does have to do with defense spending cuts. Okay, that's also why they're not engaging with these military drills and all this stuff that the U.S. usually holds with Europe throughout the year. So that was a report coming out today. Now for Max 24, Ukrainian air defense shot down 79 out of 145 Shahed UAVs, 54 drones suppressed by electronic warfare, and we don't know how many of the Iskander M or KN-23s were taken down. Also, 1 out of 1 Iskander K was shot down. Okay, so these two right here could have been the ones that were striking inside of Dobropilya. Kind of a hard name to say. The one that the city we talked about in Donetsk region today that got hammered by cluster munitions. So here's a little diagram showing many of these drones and missiles that were shot down today, okay, by the Ukrainian Defense Forces. Now, final update of the day from the Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of March 8th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. All right, guys, so here we go. Russia's losses as of March 8th. 1,000 troops, 12 AFVs, 113 vehicles and fuel tanks, 4 tanks, 24 artillery systems, 148 UAVs, 1 MLRS, 35 cruise missiles. This was from that attack yesterday that we reported across Ukraine. A lot of their energy infrastructure being targeted by missiles. 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems destroyed yesterday. 3 special equipment. Okay, so a lot more being destroyed today than yesterday, but this troop number is probably the lowest we've seen in a while. 1,000 troops only. Usually we see 1,300 on average, so a little bit lower than normal. About 12 AFVs only. Right around 100 we've been seeing vehicles and fuel tanks being destroyed, and only 4 tanks over the last 24 hours. So still quite a bit of Russian military equipment being destroyed and troop losses, about average that we've been seeing lately. So yeah, tons of huge news from this war today, guys. I want to thank you very much for tuning in for this. I have a feeling we're going to talk more about the Kursk region over the next coming days, as things are just changing so rapidly over there right now. You know, we could hear out of nowhere that Ukraine has to pull out, but it looks like right now they are holding inside the Kursk region, and we'll continue to monitor that and give you guys updates when things change. So thank you very much for tuning in for this update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell, that way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.